I appreciate the notion of agency, that we're not bystanders in the world. It's decisions, not conditions, that determine our fate and future. And that fundamental notion of agency, I think, is important more broadly. And I think that goes to some of the issues around, victimization. And I see a lot of that, respectively, on the right, increasingly, even with Trump often approaching things from that sort of mindset.
What do you mean? What do you mean for Trump?
I think there's sort of the grievance.
What I saw.
Yeah.
What it looked to me like he was negotiating with a deaf process.
The political pressure just hit boiling point, and Gavin Newsom didn't just react, he exploded. It all started when Tyrus unexpectedly set off a chain reaction no one saw coming. What followed? Outrage, a frantic scramble to control the chaos, and a response sharp enough to leave the whole set reeling. Just when you thought political drama couldn't get any crazier, this took a wild twist. It spiraled in ways that had everyone glued to their screens, asking the same uneasy question: what happens next? Stick around. Today's twist is the most shocking one yet.
Well, it's not his words when he speaks.
Yeah.
You have to watch him closely. And some genius decided not to film him any lower than the shoulder.
Yes, did you? Yes.
So what did he do?
You couldn't see the hands.
No, but he sent Morse code.
Yes.
Go back and watch it. Look at the blinking. Blink, look. Meet me at the house. Like, he's blinking. He's sending. I'm getting there. Hey, just so you know, I'm not wearing.
The second I didn't step into the room, it was like chaos broke loose. Doors flew open, mug got tracked across the carpet, and every carefully stacked talking point got knocked over. In just a minute, the usual political theater, polished smiles, recycled outrage, was completely off script.
Gavin Newsom he just all around sucks.
Yeah.
He's just, you gotta be good at something.
Yeah. You gotta be good at something.
You gotta,
What is, there's
clearly
not one
the governor thing ain't his thing.
Yeah.
Telling the truth is tough. So maybe he was gonna be a good comedian, because that's what happens to a lot of people. Acting doesn't work out, then they go into politics, and he's like, hey, I'll be a comedian. Turns out, sucks at that too. So I don't know, maybe try carpentry. I don't know. But
before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. You definitely don't want to miss this. Then, in the next minute, Tyrus dropped words so sharp and bright, they practically made California's whole political system short-circuit live on TV. Suddenly, Gavin Newsom wasn't in control of his carefully crafted image anymore. Things were spinning out fast.
I want some of this, then you do some of this, and I'll do some of that back to you, and then we'll do this, and then I'll pay you, and then we'll do it again.
Yeah.
And then she kept saying, no. Okay, how about this? You do this one first, then we do this one, then we give a little back and forth.
He was struggling against a tidal wave of attention, reactions, and a public response that went from calm to explosive in no time. The interesting part wasn't that uncomfortable truths came out. That happens in politics every day.
Speaking of full of I'm sorry, I'm confused. He's still governor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he could do something about it. That's the most irritating thing, is like, why did anyone say with a follow-up where he's like, the homeless situation is ridiculous? Follow-up question, aren't you governor?
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference. That's the difference between the radical left and President Trump. He'll talk about something as it.
The real show was seeing a man who thrives on control lose his grip on the story just long enough to show everyone what pure frustration looks like when it slips past the PR filter. And it wasn't subtle. It wasn't polished. It was the kind of reaction that makes consultants spill their coffee and start refreshing social media like traders in a market crash. What made it even more intense was the contrast. On one side, Tyrus moved with calm, almost lazy confidence, knowing the reaction would do half the work for him. The audience wasn't passive, and the timing couldn't have been worse. They were pulled into the spotlight, consequences included. Once that happened, the usual tricks of spinning the story into something safer stopped working. The public could see the cracks. Newsom's response came in stages, almost like levels in a boss fight. First was denial, dressed up as dismissal, the political equivalent of swatting a mosquito while insisting nothing's happening.
And then, look, he's blinking, and then eventually the camera guy, realizing that he's signaling him, so he gets appalled, leans back, camera comes down, and then we're back to this. I'll do this for you. You do this for me a little. So he's saying whatever he's going to say. There it is. See, they couldn't hold him back. He's like, I'm not on film. Oh, I'm not. Nope. Oh, bring my hands up. Bring him up. Bring him up. Bring him up. Bring him up. He's playing with us. Meet me at my house. You get mine. I get yours. It'll work out.
Next came defensive explanations, piling up faster than anyone could check them. Then showed up that unmistakable edge of irritation, the kind that says the buttons weren't just pressed, they were hammered repeatedly. What pushed this into a full-blown spiral wasn't just what was said, it was how fast it spread. Clips bounced across platforms like pinballs. Supporters scrambled to spin the story, critics sharpened their attacks, but the internet had already made up its mind. This wasn't about calm fixes anymore, it had become pure spectacle. The political world was tripping over itself in real time. And then came the body language. A slight shift in posture when control slips, a tightened jaw, and eyes darting a little too sharply. Analysts didn't need insider info. It was all there in the stance, the pacing, and the way the response felt less like leadership and more like damage control.
But his hand gestures matched the words coming out of his mouth.
Right. Yes,
if the president was like, we want peace in the Middle East, you know what I'm saying? He would be like,
right, and like, that's it. That it is. It's the contrast.
Yeah, like Gavin, his hands are aggressive. You know, we've had a lot of theories. One, it was a bad negotiation with a deaf hooker. You know, now he doesn't want to pay for, you know.
Do you have a problem with deaf hookers?
He does, because
it's always something to watch when a polished political operator is ripped out of script mode and thrown into reaction mode. Script mode is safe. Script mode is rehearsed. It's where every word is carefully shaped to please focus groups and avoid upsetting donors on both coasts. Reaction mode, though, that's when instinct takes over. And instinct, especially when irritated, rarely flatters. Tyrus didn't even need to land a punch. The exposure itself acted like a pressure release. Years of carefully crafted messaging, branding, and political choreography suddenly had to improvise under heat. Reaction channels doubled their posting speed. Everyone wanted a piece. Supporters rushed in with loyalty that looked like emergency triage, explaining, contextualizing, and reassuring everyone that none of this was as bad as it seemed. Opponents didn't hesitate either. They didn't just analyze, they celebrated, stacking digital evidence like trophies on a virtual shelf. And hovering above it all was Newsom's reaction, echoing through the cycle. Every new defense only made that first eruption feel louder.
days later,
99%
no one's crossed. They're standing at the border like, you go. No, that you go. Like, no one wants to go. Newsom goes down there and says, oh, there's a problem. This is what we saw this in New York when he put, what's his name, that Blasio, the guy you really hate?
Bill de Blasio.
He put his wife in charge of the homeless, and there's $50 million still missing?
Yeah.
So this is another one of the left's money schemes where the guy who's in charge is saying, we need help, we need to figure out a way to do this. So they're going to make a committee. They already have bubonic plague in California. I remember Dr. Drew was going, there's bubonic plague back in California.
It's one of the tough truths of modern media. Once an emotional reaction is out there, every attempt to soften it only reminds people it happened. The irony? Political figures spend their whole careers trying to look unshakable, yet the moments that define them most come when they visibly crack. Strategists were already debating whether to double down or pivot. The social media team were refreshing notifications so fast their screens were practically overheating. Somewhere, a crisis memo was being drafted and rewritten at the speed of regret. But the internet doesn't wait for memos. While the pros calibrated their responses, the public reacted instantly. Memes popped up in minutes because satire senses panic the way sharks sense blood. Clips were slowed down, background music added, and facial expressions captured in screenshots that would outlive any official statement. And then came the follow-ups, because once a reaction leaks, it sparks questions. Questions that bring scrutiny and often more chaos.
We need to rethink everything, because the one thing about dementia or getting older, that the real you comes out. Mm-hmm. There's no more filters, the little Jiminy Cricket in your shoulder that says, don't say that, he died. So now it's just unfiltered. Mm-hmm. So now we have to go back I think Corn Pop got a bad rap.
Yes.
Pretty sure Corn Pop's name was Cornelius.
Yes.
And Joe was trying to tell him how cool his hair is when it gets wet.
Screwed Me digs up other moments, other statements, and other decisions that suddenly feel important. The original exposure stops being just one spark, it becomes a doorway into a bigger conversation most people in power would rather avoid. The most interesting part wasn't what Newsom said next, it was the change in tone. The sharp edges softened, but not enough to erase the initial shock. For years, Newsom has mastered staying on the fence, shaping discussions before critics can even speak. But when exposure briefly flips that control, the adjustment can look messy. Muscles trained for performance suddenly have to absorb impact. And impact, that's exactly what the audience craved. Whether they leaned left, right, or just leaned back with popcorn, they felt it instantly. This wasn't a staged clash. This was real friction. And real friction carries a charge no rehearsed speech can ever match.
I'm not paying money for that. I'll do it myself. So, you know.
A little bit of bubble.
Could you imagine if you were the sign person for the TV going...
You know what's interesting about him? I have maintained that Gavin Newsom has the easiest job of all politicians because California is a beautiful state.
Yeah.
At its baseline, people will stay there for the weather and the scenic elements. So they'll put up with anything, and they'll put up even with a governor who...
Tyrus didn't need to do anything else. The spark had already set the room on fire. In fact, the calmer he stayed next to the eruption, the more obvious the imbalance became, creating a tension that made people uneasy without knowing why. One side moved with a steady rhythm, while the other pounded like a drum in a marching band that skipped rehearsal. The funny part, how predictable the aftermath was. Once the initial shock faded, trending tags rose and fell like shifting weather. Think pieces popped up overnight. Everyone suddenly became an expert on tone, timing, and temperament. But certain moments stick in the public memory, not because of their size, but because of the raw emotion they reveal. This was one of those moments. Strategically, the eruption may have cost more than it gave. Outrage rarely convinces skeptics, and it rarely reassures the undecided. What it does do is expose pressure, and that's what everyone could see.
I will not bring my kids back to my neighborhood because I don't feel like walking through, as you affectionately call, hobos, drug addicts and pedophiles and criminals who hide there because it's a great place to hide and commit crimes. So he could do something. He doesn't want to do something. He's just saying to see if the American people are stupid enough to fall for his...
Yeah, you know what we used to call, gotta move on.
Once that pressure becomes visible, critics stop going after the argument and start targeting the stability behind it. What happened in the days that followed wasn't flashy, but it was far more telling. Small shifts in messaging, tiny changes in emphasis, quiet retreats from positions that suddenly looked too exposed. None of it announced as a correction, yet anyone paying attention could see it clearly. Comparison engines went wild, and at the heart of it was a truth rarely spoken in polished political talk. Power doesn't like being questioned in public. It tolerates critique in controlled settings. It tolerates opposition in structured debate. But exposure, especially when it hits emotionally, feels personal, and personal intrusions trigger personal reactions. Newsom's eruption wasn't just about what was said, it was about the breach. The invisible wall between his curated image and unpredictable reality cracked just enough for people to peek inside. And once an audience gets even a brief look behind the curtain, they rarely forget it.
No.
No,
He would
because
not do that. He would not do that because that's just straight up honest racism. That's no. That's
Remember, he
some shit
did that
would
with
say.
he did that
He
about
would do it in
India.
a way where he would tell a story about the founding fathers and how they built this country so when immigrants could come from India and build 7-Elevens.
Yes, so that's what he would do.
And hand him Slurpees in the summertime.
Yes.
Overpriced, of course. That's how he'll do it. And he'll say, and then he'll tell Vivek.
In the long run, the political machine will probably absorb this moment the way it does most things, through time, distraction, and a constant stream of new controversies. But the short-term impact was impossible to ignore. The conversation shifted, the posture changed, and confidence took a noticeable hit. For viewers, it wasn't so much about who was right or wrong, it was about who lid rattled. And in the world of public perception, looking shaken often matters more than being wrong. As weeks go by, the eruption will show up casually, in clips, quick jokes, or offhand comments with a raised eyebrow. Some will spin it as a calculated exchange. Most will just remember the feeling of seeing composure give way to irritation in real time. No matter how many explanations come later, that first crack is what sticks. And somewhere inside the political machinery, that lesson is quietly noted.
He's lying and I can't do that. Well, since you can't lie, what tequila were you nursing while the Pacific Palisades burned? And what was it like banging your campaign manager's wife? Of course, he's just waiting for us to forget that his state looks like an overturned porta potty.
So what their problem is not that what he says is that anyone from any walk of life understands his message.
And that's scary.
And that is
Not announced, not acknowledged, but remembered. Exposure doesn't have to be loud to land. Sometimes all it needs is the right reaction. In this case, the reaction spoke for itself. It showed the pressure was real, the moment carried weight, and the careful balance between image and reality wobbled just enough for everyone to notice. The irony: politics thrives on performance. Yet the moments that stick are almost always the unscripted ones. Because in the end, this wasn't just about one slip or one eruption. It was a reminder the audience never tires of. Behind every polished speech and curated persona is a human reaction, waiting for the wrong moment to break free. And when it does, no amount of messaging can fully contain it. Once that reaction escapes, it becomes a reference point, a quiet mark on the timeline that commentators return to every time composure comes up in the conversation again.
And then look at the audience and be like, what?
Yeah.
What did I say here? No one likes him and his family. Because at some point, if you had any love from anybody, they'd be enough. If he was a boxer, you hug him, you put the towel over his head and be like, we're going home, man.
Yeah.
We're going home. We're done here. But
Yeah.
he couldn't even read LL.
Yeah.
Could I add something very quickly here? Obviously, Newsom is jockeying for presidential position because he has agreed to debate Ron DeSantis on this network.
Yes.
Every future display of calm will be measured against that brief flash of irritation. Every carefully crafted statement will carry a faint echo of that earlier outburst, like a hairline crack hidden beneath a fresh coat of paint. The audience will move on to the next spectacle because the news cycle always demands fresh drama. But memory works differently. It doesn't stick to data, it sticks to moments. The contrast between the polished image meant to dominate and the reaction that briefly broke through, that contrast only sharpens over time, becoming a quiet benchmark that never fully disappears. Long after the headlines move on, the clip will keep circulating in corners of the internet, resurfacing whenever pressure and power collide again. That's the true aftershock of an eruption like this. Not the initial noise, but the lasting reminder that control, no matter how carefully crafted, is always just one unexpected spark away from slipping.